Welcome to the DGD Podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds, Kobe Pierce. We're waiting on Juan Daniels if he decides to show up. And special guest, Coach Hayes. You know him from YouTube, always doing them evals. Coach, what's going on?
I'm good, man. How y'all doing, fellas? Man, appreciate y'all for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Doing well. Georgia got some news to start the day. If you haven't heard already, Dylan Raiola transferring to Buford
Who?
for his senior year. Buford, Dylan Raiola.
Uh,
Yes, that guy. If you've never heard of him, can't help
That's
you there.
huge. That's huge, man. Buford is a big powerhouse in Georgia, and you had some very good players come out of there, over the years. And man, I'm telling you, they got another stacked dude. I think Miami. We had was it Jake Garcia, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
came through there as a quarterback. He's at Mizzou now, but he was went down to Miami and got a lot of good players that have come out of Buford.
It's wild. It's Juan. If Juan was here, if old General Juan was here, he would let us know the ins and outs. But yeah, Buford. I mean, it's interesting to see this because from a Georgia perspective, I feel like it's almost like a chess match. Kobe, you get where I'm going with this, right? Georgia, Buford has not been well, right? It's not done well with recruiting there at Buford. So bringing Raiola, I think, could be a very interesting piece for Georgia recruiting in regards to Buford. What are your thoughts on that, Kobe? And then I'll talk to Coach Hayes.
yeah, no doubt. I think every college has a high school that some relationship somewhere went wrong, and you just can't seem to reintegrate that relationship. And for Georgia, the University of Georgia, and the state of Georgia, for us, it's Buford High School. Whatever happened under Mark Rick or whenever it did happen, because I mean, look, Kirby had a great relationship with Buford at Alabama. I mean, they were getting Buford kids all the time. So it's not really a Kirby thing as much as it is an institutional. Somebody pissed in somebody else's cereal, and now nobody wants them to all go to Georgia from Buford. And so it's getting a mole on the inside. It's getting a guy that not only is a commit for you, but also is one of the top players in the country to kind of be in the ear of KJ Bolden, to be in the ear of some of those juniors, some of those sophomores, some of those freshmen that may turn into really good players. Like I think we have a sophomore linebacker committed there also.
Jaden Perlotti. Yeah,
Um,
Jaden Perlotti's already there.
so really, that's all it takes is a couple of those young kids seeing Raiola, maybe seeing KJ Bolden, seeing a couple of these guys, really do well at Buford, but then also stay home, play for the in-state school, and have success there as well. Really could start changing a couple minds down the road.
Yeah. Coach, you got anything to input there?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, it's always good if you have a powerhouse high school, right? You want to definitely build those relationships. And just through my years of coaching, I've seen that happen. And it's usually something that happens with a player and maybe promises that were made or scholarship offers that didn't come through. And when you have places like Buford, and I don't know the head coaching chain of events so far as who's been there. If the coach has been there for a long time, maybe he's influential, and he probably feels like, you know what, man, Georgia screwed us over at one point. I'm done with it, regardless of who the head coach is, whatever. And you got to start mending those relationships. And I know Georgia, especially back when Mark Rick days, he had a big relationship with American Heritage down there in South Florida. Getting the guys like the Sonny Michelle's and Isaiah McKenzie's and as well, man, there's one guy that, again, back to my special teams love. Uh, Marshall, what was the punter's name? You got the kicker, Marshall
Marshall Morgan.
Morgan. I always want to say Marshall Mathers, of course, that's Eminem, but Marshall Morgan. And let me tell you this: we're playing against American Heritage to tell you about how dynamic this gentleman was. Sony Michelle was out; he was hurt, and I was the defensive coordinator. Our game plan was not to let them to get to our 45, because if he got to our 45 in, he's going to make it. I watched him kick a 59-yarder in high school to beat Dillard High School to go in the playoffs. Like, this dude is kicking, like his kickoffs were going through the uprights. He's setting car alarms off on kickoffs and stuff, man, kicking them out the gate. And so I know I went on a tangent, but to build those relationships with those high schools are huge. And again, hopefully Kirby Smart and the staff can kind of rekindle that flame, and you go and you want to have those relationships, especially if you got a powerhouse. Like, everybody knows I'm probably a Miami fan, so dogs don't bite me. Easy, doggy. But Miami has to do that. We're literally sitting in the mecca of high school recruiting. There's nowhere in the world guys from Central, American Heritage, St. Thomas Aquinas, Northwestern are leaving the South Florida area, and that's something Mario Cristobal definitely has to do to kind of fix that. But back to the dogs, with that being said, they gotta fix that relationship, man, especially in your in-state school.
So I want to take a second to kind of give people that may not be familiar with you, Coach, kind of let you explain your background, right? If you're not familiar, he is Coach Hayes for a reason. Let's I'll give you a little bit. Let people know your background and why you're called Coach Hayes.
Well, I've coached for 25 years, since 2000. So I've been coaching since I was 22 years old. I'm 46 now. So it was at 24 years, if my math is correct. But anyhow.
Sounds like it arithmetic's out, yeah.
Yeah, I've been coaching for some time. You can see I got some guys here. I got a box full of other guys. The other guys get mad at me. Coach, where's my pitch? I say, I'm gonna rotate you guys in every so often, but never seem to be able to crack that box. But like I said, coached in South Florida for a very long time, had some good players to go on to play major college football, NFL, moved to Orlando, become a head coach up here, coached at FIU with Coach Cristobal for a year, also coached with Ron Turner, who was the head coach there at FIU after Mario Cristobal. So got some college coaching experience in there as well, and just been around, man, for a long time, and decided to COVID happened like most people, right? The podcast thing blew up. I really didn't know anything about it. I don't even have TV. I have Netflix and Hulu, and I think T-Mobile paid my Netflix bill. But I say all that to say how the channel started really was being bored. Coaches can't sit still. I'm on my phone, not really knowing what YouTube was. Like, I knew what it was, but the power of it, rather. And I see a guy doing reaction videos to music videos. And I'm like, bro, he's got 1.6 million subscribers. Like, people watch this? Like, in my mind. So I'm talking to a buddy of mine. I was like, man, you saw this? We talking. I said, man, what if I, just jokingly, man, what if I did at the high school highlight tapes? Right? And he was like, sound good. I'll give you the first person to do it. I was like, who is that? He's like, Kamari Wilson, who at that time was the number one safety in 10th grade coming out, who's at Florida now. And I did that, and the channel just ding, 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 ding. And it blew up, man. And we right about, I think, 34,000 subscribers in that 3-year period. And we're just having a lot of fun, and we kind of expanded the channel. So that's who I am, I guess, in a nutshell. And we break down the top athletes. We got a Canes talk show. We got a Coach Me Coach podcast. We just talk all type of things, and that's pretty much how I roll, man.
It's crazy how that stuff works, and I kind of want to we're definitely going to be using your expertise with these evals and things like that as we move forward with the show. But before we get started, for those that are interested in hearing what's going on, so we're going to talk about how Georgia can three-peat, right? Georgia already the back-to-back national title, odds-on favorite this year to win a title as well, but it's not going to be easy, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. How can Georgia three-peat? And also kind of throw out some names, some instant impact players, right? We got a loaded 23 cycle that just come in that are freshmen, and we're going to talk a little bit about those, maybe some names to watch, if you shall. But before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Apotheos Roastery. Listen, y'all know I love them. I have my coffee every single morning. Listen, best coffee I've ever had, and I swear on that. Give them a follow, Apotheos Roastery, Twitter. Apotheos Roastery on Instagram, and Twitter, Apotheos Coffee. Make sure to let DGD, let them know DGD sent you first off. While we're doing our countdown, folks, use code COUNTDOWN and get 5% off. Keep up with the Spike Squad social media account. When they post, 30% off your order that day. Give them a shout out, give them a follow. Check out dgdpodcast.com/Apotheos and get you some coffee. Hell, even get some K-Cups, all right? Get you some K-Cups. We know how people like to be, right? Some bougie folk drinking some K-Cups. I'm a coffee grinder myself. I grind my coffee beans. Everybody does it different. Kobe, I know you like it. Coach, I'm sure you probably had so many mornings of coffee needed and everything, Coach.
I have to be honest with you, man. I probably had 5 cups of coffee in my life, and it's probably because I was somewhere it was super cold. I'm a hunter, so sometimes I'm sitting up there shivering. I might be in, I go in Southwest Georgia out there in Dawson, Georgia, outside of Albany. But yeah, coffee, it smells great.
And
just
we
not
all know
hot.
how cold it gets in South Georgia. It's ice on the ground up in South Georgia in the winter, and
It does, man. And so yeah, man, it smells great. I know people love it, man. Go get you some Apotheos. Did I say it right?
Apotheos.
Go get you some Apotheos roastery coffee, man. Let's go.
Listen, if you're a dog fan and you don't know that they are the official coffee and cold brew partner of the Classic City Collective, check them out. They got a Classic City dark roast. 20% of proceeds from each bag goes to the collective. So without further ado, let's talk about the football program, folks. Like I said, Georgia has a good chance. They're the odds-on favorite to three-peat. Obviously, it kind of takes luck, a little bit of luck, talent, things like that. But I want to kind of talk to you about some things coaching and use your coaching experience. From your perspective, what do you see that Georgia does, like just defensively, offensively? What sticks out to you from a third-party perspective? What makes Georgia so successful?
Well, I'm a defensive guy, so I'll speak on defensive first. Defense to me, those dogs can hunt. They know how to get to the ball. I mean, that's the biggest thing about Georgia. They close windows fast, right? You can tell they're well coached. You can tell that they pay attention to detail. But the biggest thing on any defensive team in order to be successful is try to get all 11 to the ball, and that stops big plays, right? It's not the chunk plays. I mean, it's not the dink and dunks, right? Eventually those will sputter and that happens. But you got to eliminate big plays, and big plays really break people's back. And I go back and think about prime example is Malachi Starks. I know we may talk about him a little bit, but that was the Mizzou game. I forget the running back pops it up the gut. Malachi turns on the afterburners, go gets him, and holds him to 3 points, right? Because he went and got the ball. And so that just goes to show you, I think that is one of the main ingredients for a successful defense, and that's one of the main ingredients for Georgia being so successful on defense. I mean, again, you got guys with Nolan Smith coming off the edge, super light speed. I mean, guys all over the place and so forth and so on. So that's from a defensive perspective. Offensively, I think, again, your quarterback is the engine to the Lamborghini, right? You got a lot of pieces and a lot of parts, but Stetson Bennett cerebrally beats you sometimes. People talked about, his arm, or he can't throw, he's a walk-on, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, the young man can play, and he proved it over and over again. I guarantee Kirby Smart, with even the great talent you guys have in that room, I guarantee he'll give half his salary to get Stetson Bennett one more year just to get the three-peat. You know what I mean? So I see him doing that well on the offensive side of it.
Because I know a lot of questions stem from, right, like Georgia losing Todd Monken, right? Obviously, offensive coordinator. So you bring Mike Bobo back. Some speculation, hesitation, if you will, even from Georgia fans, right? Some people didn't really like Bobo from his first time as offensive coordinator. But when you look at the things, right, you're replacing Stetson Bennett, like you said, and honestly, from what anybody wants to say, that's going to be a difficult task to do for what it's worth, just because his pre-snap reads and identifications, things like that. Also his legs, right? Mm-hmm. You look at Carson Beck as the presumed starter, nothing official yet. But I think what Carson Beck can bring to this offense, and when you pair that with some of the receiving talent that I'll probably name in a little bit, it opens up a dynamic in the offense, like a wrinkle in the offense that could be pretty dynamic and change the philosophy of what Georgia could be offensively. With Carson Beck, I feel like Carson Beck, like just head and shoulders above arm talent wise. And you look at Carson Beck as being able to hit parts of the field that Stetson Bennett may not have been able to comfortably, vertically. But when you pair that with guys like Arian Smith, and you pair that with incoming freshmen like Anthony Evans, Yazid Haynes, pure speed. When you pair that, in my opinion, I think that's what's going to add a wrinkle that where we saw deep shots, but it was nowhere near to the volume that you could see this year, just based off of pure speed alone.
Right.
Kobe, with you, what do you see offensively that could make Georgia, have a good chance at 3-peat? What do you see?
I think we're going to take it to the trenches. Everybody likes the Lamborghinis outside. Sometimes it takes big old dirty men inside to keep everybody safe.
Dump trucks. Yeah, baby.
The big nasties.
You have legitimately 4 offensive linemen on your team right now that are going to be starters that probably will get drafted in this year's upcoming NFL draft. I mean, and then the 5th one is just not going to be old enough. I think that people don't really understand how important and how crazy that can be as far as your offensive line, and the amount of snaps they've played together. A lot of offensive lines, even the best ones in the country, they may have like 2 or 3 really good players on the offensive line, and then you're able to hide a guard that's not as good, or hide a weak side tackle or something. But you got some guys that have played a lot of ball. That's a big thing. Cedric Van Pran Granger, center, this is his 3rd year starting. Man's played a lot of SEC ball. He's seen a lot of blitz packages. He's seen a lot of defenses. He's seen a lot of stunts, a lot of games. He's going to be able to identify early and often to help Carson Beck behind him. When Carson walks up the line, and it's different now than it was like when I was there with Jim Chaney and Coach Coley. Like, they did a lot of mic identifying. With Monken, it was still some mic identification, but it was quick. It was boom, this is the mic. Let's run this tempo play. I assume Bobo, from what we saw in the spring game, is going to do very similar. They're not going to sit up there and waste time and argue like Lamont and Jake Fromm used to about this guy's the mic, we should be sliding right. No, I think this guy's the mic, we should be sliding left. It just slows everything down to a snail's pace. But it's definitely going to help your offense to know that the guys up front are going to keep people clean, and as long as they stay healthy, you're gonna be a dangerous football team on the ground and in the air.
Absolutely, Coach. You got any input there?
No, he's 100% right. Right, long as it's clean, and there's an old saying, right? If everybody's wrong, we all right. Right, meaning if everybody identifies that as the mic, then that's the mic. But if half of the line says that's the mic, half of the line says that's the mic, somebody's in trouble. So at the end of the day, if everybody's wrong, we all right. And meaning, like, if we all go against the grain a little bit, we're going to be okay. And to say that, I think Mike Bobo comes in, he may not change the formula too much. A lot of people think when coaches come in, they're going to come in with their own thing, and they all do. You all come in with your own little twist to it. But it's one of those things, if it's not broken, why fix it, right? So you may tweak a little bit here. And I've always said this as coaches. I mean, I know we have our own terminology, and sometimes you can come in and maybe make things easier, or you can come in and complicate things. I think that Kirby Smart is a person that understands the game, and he understands how important keeping things simple are. And it's easier for a coach to reterm his offense than it is to try and reterm that all say 50 something guys on offense. So it's very easy in that sense. But yeah, to Kobe's point, he's 100% correct.
And Coach, I think a big thing that you don't always get, obviously, in college football, and the bidding war that could be offensive coordinators, you basically hired from within. I don't think that should be overlooked at all. Basically, Mike Bobo had a year of being Todd Monken's second-hand man, learning all of his, verbiage, learning the plays he likes to run, the packages, how he likes to align against certain defenses. So he's going to be able to carry that over. And from what we've heard this offseason, he's basically changing none of the, core package verbiage.
Right.
And like you're saying, that just allows someone like Carson Beck, who has been learning that since 2020, to now still know it going into your 3rd year. You haven't put in 3 years of learning Todd Monken's offense to just flush it and have to completely restart in January. You're building upon what you've already put that work in to learn and to know without having to think.
Yeah, I feel like verbiage has to matter, and I think it goes overlooked. Just the small things when you look at changing coordinators, right? Like those little tweaks, right? Understanding, is it the same verbiage, right? Learning different installs, like when it comes to install and stuff like that. When you have to, especially from a veteran center like Cedric Van Pran, which needs to know everything, right? So if you bring in Bobo that knows the terminologies, knows right all this, and nothing really changes too much, it actually is a benefit more so than what people realize. And I think a lot of people outside the Georgia. I mean, honestly, there's some within the Georgia space as well that assume that we're gonna struggle offensively. There might be some growing pains with a first time starter quarterback, but I don't necessarily see in it be a genuine struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I might be wrong, but that's at least my thoughts with it.
Yeah, I just tell you a quick story about coaches, right? Sometimes we get in our own way. I've been part of a staff where on the offensive side, if they want to make an audible, right, to your left or right, right? Some people call it east and west because they think that the defense picks it up. Trust me, most of them defenses do trying to figure out what day it is. And they're so worried about somebody's going to pick up this, that, and the third. So instead of left and right, it's east and west. So there was a coach one time, just tell you a crazy story, how crazy some coaches get with this. He would make calls, for example, Bangkok, that would be the audible to change it. But what does it mean? Oh, because it's in the Western Hemisphere and not the Eastern Hemisphere. I'm like, Coach, what the God dog are you talking? Like, now the kids have to understand what hemisphere a certain country or city is in just to go right or left. Like, forget the old laser, right? Razor. You remember that? Louis, Roger. This dude is talking about, it's in the West, it's in the Eastern Hemisphere. This is in the, America, the Western Hemisphere. Like, what? Has nothing to do with I just said it amazes me. And so I said all that to say sometimes we get in our own way. And I think that, again, like you say, Mike Bobo being there, understanding that, and he's a veteran coach. He's not new to this, so he understands that, man. I think the train will be rolling just fine.
I know when I was at, so this stems all the way down to the high school level at least, right? Like I remember when I was quarterbacking and we would have like calls, right? We'd have to do like states or cities or whatever. Not that it was a problem, but my head, I would start to think ahead of time, like what city or what state do I want to use? And it kind of gets you off focused. You know what I mean? Like simplification could be your best friend at times.
Yeah. Sometimes coaches want to prove they can coach, so they want to make it hard, man. So guys like us, later down the line, we got a gray beard. Yeah, I remember my coach came out there and he was, using geometry terms like parallel, and perpendicular. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, man, you see some guys do some crazy stuff, man.
And see what's funny, for my high school, and parallel and perpendicular would have been a funny one because it would have worked, but they would count the first letter like Sarah and Sally were both plays. Sarah starting with the S is stretch, and then the R in Sarah is stretch right, and Sally is stretch left. So parallel and perpendicular could have been power right and power left.
I get it, and I've seen coaches.
But that was pretty easy. I'm not gonna lie. Like P. And we only have one call. They didn't change it up. If it was parallel and perpendicular, it would always be parallel and perpendicular.
See, y'all were lucky, man. I got to run triple option in high school.
Oh wow.
We ran power I my freshman through junior year, and then we ran spread my senior year. So that was a mess.
Yeah, you use things, and sometimes I have a whole video on my channel about categorizing plays, right? And I try to make stuff simple. Some guys go on a thesaurus and they look at different things. Like I always made things, like I said, we would use states, and then sometimes, talking high school, you have to give the kids, right, some power in the play call because it seemed like they remember it. So, for example, we would do the strong side blitz. We knew that a state was two people, right? Well, go home tonight, think about it, come up with a state with the letter S. Well, it's only two. South Dakota and South Carolina. So guess what, bro? They feel like, Coach, we're going to use South Carolina. I like it. You're right. Let's do it.
Hey, you'd be surprised at how powerful that stuff really is, though.
Yeah. So, you just come up with that kind of stuff, man, and people think about it. But, anyway, yeah, that we could talk about that kind of stuff for days.
Then you log roll them when they run the wrong way. You're like, you pick the play.
I do want to kind of transition over to defense, right? We talk about play calling and on offense and everything, but one of the things that I think what makes Georgia so just fluid, right, is the defense, and I wouldn't say I'd say talent for one, obviously, but instinctiveness, right? The the instincts that you look at linemen all the way back to linebackers and everything. I feel like Georgia's been blessed with instinctual players that watch enough tape to understand, like it's just making calls, like seeing what you're right, like understanding what you're seeing in real time. Yeah, I don't know how many times, Kobe, last year we would see D linemen throw that hand up, linebackers pointing stuff out, right? Just pointing stuff out. And then always like it just shows you at that point that film study matters,
Mhm.
right? And I feel like preparation, it starts all the preparation from the coaching staff there. When you look at, and I think maybe for me, right, if we're talking about trying to three-peat, right, you lose Jalen Carter. And honestly, the past couple of years, you've lost a ton of defensive talent. Coach, you know this, you've done some evals on some of these guys that went to the draft. And, it's mind-boggling to think, right, when you look at what Georgia's lost
Mhm.
and to see that the defense doesn't really miss much in that way, it's insane to think about that. Um, Obviously it helps with recruiting, things like that too. But ultimately, I think the instincts, the intelligence, right, from the linebackers, because now you're looking at what Smile Mondon, Pop Johnson being juniors, right? You're led on the defensive line by a bunch of upperclassmen, right? You're looking at Zion Logue, Stackhouse, Walthour. All those guys are experienced veterans, right? Now they don't have to worry about a Jalen Carter. They don't have to worry about a Jordan Davis, right? And Devontae Wyatt. So now it's their turn. Uh, Ultimately, I just think that, and paired that with our schedule for what it's worth, I think you're going to see the defense just purely dominate again this year. Coach, what do you think?
No, you're right. It's almost like the Carson Beck situation, right? Think about the guys that's coming up behind the Jalen Carters, behind the Jordan Davis. They're sitting there sponging right now, right? The thing is, they have an elite talent, and that's what happens when you start winning, and all of that too. I have to give credit to the recruiting process. You're recruiting the right guys. You're recruiting the right athletes, as well as those athletes have the right mindset, right? You can always recruit the great athlete, wrong mindset. But then you can also recruit the right mindset, but not a great athlete. But to get both in a player, that's why you guys are favored to be a three-peat, because you're getting the right guys. I mean, I hear all the time people talk about losing players, losing player. This person's losing bro. Everybody leaves, but they keep going. You understand what I'm saying? Because you're recruiting the right people behind them. Because what was there before there was a Jalen Carter? What was there before there was a Jordan Davis? What was there before you would get a Sam and Pimba, right? Oh, Nolan Smith. But what was there before him? Now, I mean, we get caught up because we see the present, like, oh God, it was so good. You know what I mean? But trust me, it's gonna be another guy that comes right behind that. And especially when I do my evals, you always hear, oh, this person is such and such 2.0, and that's the deal. And I will say this, what does again helps the defense, because they're such good athletes and the coaching and the teaching is good. That's what you call erasers on a football field. Even when it's wrong, they can erase the mistake because they're so fast. They can close ground so fast. Even if the call is not perfect, it looks great because these guys within 5 yards have an extraordinary burst. So you don't see as coaches, they know there was a mistake. But from the fans, it's like, man, look at that dude make a play. And if you go into interviews and you listen to a lot of players and you'd be like, man, how'd you get that interception, man? What were you doing? A lot of times, you know what they'll say? It's either I knew that was the call or, man, I was doing the wrong thing. You hear that a bunch. Man, I was on the wrong side. I did the wrong thing, and I just made a play. And those are erasers. Those are the kind of guys you want on your team, especially defensively.
And I think that you're blessed with coaches that have seen some elite talent in their life as well. I mean, between Kirby, Muschamp, Schumann, even when you had Dan Lanning rolling through, I mean, you had some guys that could evaluate talent. And we've had some swing and misses. For every good player we've had some guys that have transferred out or you've missed out on, and not swing and miss even in their talent. I mean, Tyreek Stevenson, a perfect example, go to Miami, had an amazing career, second round draft pick. He was Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great player. It just didn't quite work out for him here.
Jermaine Johnson is, on the other hand, someone that bet on himself and worked out well.
I mean, unbelievable first-round talent, played at FSU. But then for every one of those, there's a Brenton Cox floating around. That it just didn't quite work out as well. But the thing is what Kirby and to reach on your point about how prepared we seem and how we're able to call out plays and how instinctual the linebackers are. You sit through a meet with Glenn Schumann. I mean, it's not instinctual. That man is hammering you on what you're supposed to be doing, what call are you supposed to be making, where are you supposed to be, what coverage. Do you have the DBs lined up correctly? Are the defensive linemen aligned properly? Okay, what's your motion man doing out of the backfield? Is he dropping into the flat, or is he protecting the quarterback? Like, they're looking at so many things. It just is amazing to me the amount of detail oriented coaching that goes into the meetings from like Coach Scott. I've been in plenty of Coach Scott's meetings. Like, he will sit there and we will break down film and he will tell you, like, if you're stabbing an offensive lineman, that your left hand was about 6 inches lower than we would like it to be on this play. Mm-hmm. Like, we would like that hand just a little bit higher, and you probably would have won that rep if your hand was in the correct spot. Mm-hmm. It's those kind of details that go into creating a football program like this, and it's the reason that we're paying all these coaches so much damn money. I mean, it's like we talked about the other day. We're paying coaches that aren't even coordinators $1 million a year right now to coach Georgia football.
Hey, and you know what, man? You guys make your hand over fist. They probably pay him off in one Saturday on hot dogs, man. I mean, it's just, you'll be surprised. Like, and to your point, Kobe, like the attention to detail in coaching is so big. A lot of people, for the layman fan, he's just out there like a bunch of guys running around, running into each other. But it's so much technique. There's so many different things that you have to pay attention to. And like you say, from a coach's preparation standpoint, you start talking formations, you start talking who's in that formation, right? If you can start identifying, well, yeah, it's not just 3-by-1. Wait a minute. Their slot receiver is now at the X. See, that tells a story. The slot receiver that's typically the slot receiver opponent is now at the Z. And it still trips, but the personnel has moved around within it. See, that's when you start picking up on little things and picking up on tendencies and those type of deals. I get the old white knuckles run and light knuckles is pass. Them days are done. But now you got to start picking up on the formations, how far the splits are. All of those things tell stories, man. All of that stuff.
And they communicate. It waterfalls to Robert's point. Like defensive linemen pointing to the sky or pointing to the ground. They call it birds and rabbits at Georgia. Yeah. Birds means the defensive lineman thinks it's a pass, something they see, something they notice, think it's going to be a pass. Rabbits, something they see with how either their splits or their alignment, and just that split second of telling that linebacker that can maybe give him, oh yeah, they are in a run heavy package that we saw on tape, or they're in a trick play that we saw them run 6 years ago against Alabama or something. That's the other thing. Boy, our film people, they pull plays. I mean, they watch plays from every trick play in the book. If they've ever run it, we're going to look at it at least once just to see.
Yeah.
We talk about detail. So Low Illo Joe in the brigade says details matter. I'm going to give you an example. When we played South Carolina last year, there was one specific play where a receiver comes in for one play, he has dreads. As soon as they saw that man in there, they knew that it was going to be a screen. and the DB came in and busted it up and got a tackle for a loss on it. The guy went out. He came in from the sideline for that one play, and the defense knew immediately, hey, screen, screen, screen. And you just saw the collapse, boom, and get the tackle for a loss. Yeah. Details matter, and that's 100% accurate.
And you know what's funny, man? You talk about, I remember being at FIU watching film, and I believe we were playing Louisiana Monroe, and they had this receiver was dynamic. But I noticed on the tape, every time he got the ball, he did the same thing, but he wiped his hands on his pants, right? Before he get the ball to clear his glove. I know he did it subconsciously. He didn't even realize and it was subtle. It was just quick, like, you know. And so we're looking at it, and I'm telling safety, I say, Perk, listen, baby, if you watch 14 and he put his hands on his pants, he's getting the ball, right? Start work. And it happened every time. But he did it subconsciously. That was his tell. You know what I mean? And everybody has a tell for certain things. You know, you always talk about offensive linemen who tilt and so forth. But like subconsciously, when guys are focused on getting the ball, they do things that give themselves up. You know what I mean? And so forth and so on.
Running backs are the worst. Running back alignments in the backfield are the worst. I mean, they will tell you when they're running the ball 99% of the time. They either a little bit of lean, half a step back in a shotgun. You know, you'll go from their parallel to the running backs just a little bit back.
Yeah, inside zone. So we used to do that, right? So if he's a little bit behind the quarterback, we would call Izzy for inside zone. Izzy, right? So how you be a birds and rabbits? We yelling Izzy. If he's parallel, Oz, outside zone. If he's in front, you know what I mean? What do we call it? Parrot, something like that. But for pass. But anyhow, you're right. And I always told my players, we're playing Vegas odds here. The house always wins. We may lose one of those battles, but we play enough hands, we're going to win at the end of the night playing the Vegas odds. You know, you're not going to be 100% right. But if we can anticipate those things and get great pre-snap reads, we can definitely be successful.
Absolutely. I think another thing, we've went 40 minutes. We went well into this, and we haven't even mentioned some major names like Brock Bowers, right? Like we haven't talked Brock Bowers once, which is just crazy. Or Dominic Lovett, right? So I want to get your thoughts on this, right? So obviously during the offseason, you look at Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett coming in to help the receiving core, lose A.D. Mitchell. And from what, you know, and me and Kobe's talked to this several times, you know, it's ironic that the two guys that had really good games against Georgia are now on Georgia's team. Dominic Lovett looked really good. And then Ra Thomas at Mississippi State looked good, had a good game. It's just ironic to me how that works. But with this receiving core, right, tight ends included, because Georgia utilizes a tight ends better than any program in the country, the depth that in my opinion, I feel like Georgia's receiving core, both receivers and tight ends, are as deep as I think I've ever seen it. And it's not bad talent either, right? There's no, Kobe, there's no John Fitzpatrick, there's no Rylan Godey's at this point, in my opinion. Kobe over here. Wow.
I don't know those guys, but apparently,
I can't comment on that. I know I've been to one of those guys' weddings. I can't say nothing on that. Holy cow!
Apparently, that was a little shot below the belt. I get it.
Only name dropping people with guests on the show.
It's the thing about it is don't take this out of context. But what I'm saying is, like, these guys are legit playmakers.
I'm just playing. I know what you mean.
It's not the days where you have like one tight end and then right, like you kind of forget about people. When you look at the tight end room alone, right? Coach, I know you eval'd Oscar Delp when he was in high school. So you have Brock Bowers, Oscar Delp, and now you've got Pierce Spurlin and Lawson Lucky. That's four guys. Well, they may, depending on how it goes, you could easily rotate these guys in and just have them run routes. I mean, the days of old Georgia tight ends are completely different because I don't think you're misutilizing a tight end right now. I just don't see that.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Tight ends are not tight ends anymore. Tight ends are bigger receivers that's a little slower, right? That's just really what it is, right? We're talking 220, 230 guys that are great ball catchers, but they're not the 4.3 speed guys. They're not the game splitters. I joke with a buddy of mine, and I've always said this, but I always thought if Andre Johnson came out, they might have labeled him a tight end. You know what I mean? At 220, 6'3", 220, he may have been labeled. Like if you look at a Kyle Pitts, for example, right? 240, right? That's not a typical size, but he has receiver skill set. And so instead of saying we're going to attach you to the line and be the sixth offensive lineman that can eventually go out for a pass here and there, because the ball is thrown around the yard so much, why not use the mismatch? Why not use the 6'6" guy, 240 that has small guy skill, big body style against a lesser athletic linebacker, right? Or you put him on a 5'9" corner or a 5'10" corner that's 165. He don't have a chance for the first down catch, for the hitch, for the subtle route. And so it creates a bunch of mismatches all over the place, And so that's what you're starting to see with the quote unquote tight end spot or the Y position, and the H back is really what they really are. We call them tight ends, but they're more of an H back deal.
Coach, with 165-pound cornerbacks, I feel like we're playing Mississippi State.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, there's some small dudes out there, but and then I mean, what do you do against a Kyle Pitt? What do you do against a Brock Bowers, bro?
What about Darnell Washington?
A name you'll be familiar with too, which we know him well, Lawrence Cager. I mean, basically played wide receiver in college for both of us, and now he has transitioned to he's a tight end in the NFL. He's a big body. He's 6'5". He's probably 240.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't fast enough, like you're saying. He wasn't fast enough for somebody to say, well, this is our receiver. But he's good enough to go, but he could be a tight end. He could be an off-the-ball tight end kind of player, and he's had success. I mean, he's made rosters that way. It's the new era of the tight end.
Ain't he with the Jets right now? I think he's with the Jets.
No, the Giants. He was with the Jets. Now
that's what it was. Yeah. So, another thing, I think you look at Cager as a good example of, right, like everybody looks at receivers, Coach, you probably see where I'm about to go with this, only for their hands. And I mean by that is catching passes. And I'm not talking about catching bodies in the blocking game. Georgia, on the other hand, you look at Georgia receivers, they're notoriously known for blocking, right? Sure. And Cager, I think, was a perfect example where if you try to transition him right from the receiver to the tight end, his perimeter blocking was good enough to handle it. I think you just get him bulked up and handle online, right, in line scrimmage, and then go from there. And I think that's another thing that it's underrated, right? Because everybody wants the flash and the pizzazz and all this other stuff. Georgia just gets to work, like. Yeah.
So I'm gonna tell you this, guys. It's funny. I said this the other day on one of my live shows for King's Talk live show, and I was talking, and I don't like to do this, but I've done it. And we were talking about Will Mallory being a great ball catcher. And one day I was pissed off after the game. I knew I do pre and post game. I called him Whiff Mallory because he's always whiffing on the blocks. But on the show just this week, and I was talking about receivers. A lot of times, you guys know I have a chip system, like kind of a grading system. And I always give hits to running backs and receivers for not having blocking on their highlight tape. And I tell them, I say, guys, that's so essential. You got a 10-minute highlight tape. You got 60 plays of you taking somebody deep. Okay, you can run the vertical ball. I get it. And I said, I literally said this. I'm actually going to put this on a shirt. And I talked about game tape. When guys are recruiting, coaches are recruiting, they look at game tape. Yeah, highlight tapes are cool. That's the trailer to the movie. Now I'm going to go see the movie. And the movie says, oh, you don't do this without the ball. And I said, game tapes have taken more scholarships than highlight tapes have given scholarships. And that's the God's honest truth. Game tape, when the coaches go look at the game tape and they look and say, bro, this dude players away, he's walking. He's not going after the ball. He's not taking. He start block players away. He let him go. And guess who ended up making the backside tackle? Backside corner.
Person who should have been getting hands put on him.
Exactly.
Pickens was an example, Kobe. If you watched him, Pickens had a bad tendency to slack off from time to time if the ball wasn't coming his way, especially early on, right? So there was, I forgot what game it was. He was supposed to block. And he kind of loafed off the ball, right? Ran him off, didn't run him off. So loafed off and next thing you know, the guy that he was supposed to run off made the tackle from the backside of the play, comes over and makes the tackle downfield. It's the attention to detail. It's the mentality that you play with 100% of the game, right, throughout the game. Like, we get it. Like, I don't have to play football to know that you're gonna get tired. But if you do the right things 100% of the time, that gets noticed a lot more. You have to assume that, and that's another thing, a testament to how Georgia's recruiting and assembling this roster. Because when you look at Georgia, one of the things that separates Georgia from anyone else, in my opinion, at this point in time, is the aggression 100% of the time. It feels like, right? The mentality of we're going to dominate, and we make it happen, right? We just keep doing what we do. To be physical at all times. It's easier said than done, right? Everybody wants to be aggressive, but Georgia's aggression, as tenacious and consistent as it is what separates them. You look at the Kobe, a perfect example of the willingness here, right? We talked about defense being aggressive, but offensive linemen can be just as aggressive, pushing piles. Georgia did that a ton this past year, and if you go back to G-Day, right, G-Day this April, you saw all of our offensive linemen pushing and moving the pile and getting extra yards. Over 4 quarters, that wears defenses out if you keep doing those things.
It's no different than boxing, right? People don't realize how much it is. I'm going to go back a little bit maybe before you guys' time, but when old George Foreman used to lean on guys, right? You're on the ropes, tying them up. Believe it or not, it tires guys out. And so in the long haul, right, in the fourth quarter, the end of the third quarter, or the end of that 10th round, when you're fighting guys out, the old Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope, let them punch yourself out. Well, if I'm leaning these big 330-pound bodies and I'm bringing force with it, I'm actually heavier than 300 pounds, that wears you down, because remember, those defensive linemen got to also go chase that ball, right? They also have to do these stunts. So they're exerting so much energy. And again, if you can always pound that rock, man, and you can wear those guys out, then you definitely can win some ball games.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go back to what you said about George and a little bit about that too. Is there's an old coach's saying, and it's a good one. It's on up there that defense, only one person's got to be right sometimes to make the play, to make a tackle. But offense, you need all 11 players to be doing their jobs to give you the best chance of success. Obviously, for defense, you need all 11 players to be doing their jobs too. But I've heard it time and time again, Coach. I'm sure you have. You only got to have one guy go make a tackle, and all is forgiven to some extent. So you really need that backside receiver, like you're talking about, to make that block. And the thing about George, when he was here early, and something that I'm sure Coach has seen plenty of while watching highlight film, and it's not always the best way to look at it, but there's levels to this shit. Like the George Pickens of this world are going to get to play college football. They're that good. But if you're not George Pickens, if you're not a top 10 wide receiver and you're lazy and you're not doing your job and you kind of have a nonchalant attitude and you act like that the world revolves around you getting thrown the football, not that, FIU ain't offering you. That's not, you're not getting that offer. I guess that, and then even beyond that, George had to learn that there's still levels to it. Again, you're not going to get to play in the NFL consistently or for a long period of time if you also don't give energy, if you don't go and block for your teammate. You're expecting your teammate to block for you when you're catching the ball. You have to, reciprocate the same common courtesy.
No, you're 100% right, bro. Like when you talk about that, you got to be able to do things without the ball. And the biggest problem a lot of players don't realize, the college transition, you're going from being the man to being a man. Everybody was the man in their respective high school, city, state, whatever. Now you're amongst, especially if you're going to Georgia, the Alabamas, the Ohio State, the Clemson, everybody respectively was the man. And so now what separates you to now become the man again? You have to outwork these dudes. And back to your point, Kobe, because I'm a defensive guy, to flip is, remember old Chip Kelly he was running 120-something play, typically you get about 80. He was running 120. His mindset was, I only got to be right. If I'm right 7 times, that's 49 points out of 120. He's like, that's less than 10% right. If I could be right less than 10% and win a ball game at 49 points. And I was like, that's a great way of looking at it. I mean, of course, there's more to it, but it made sense when he said it. You know what I mean? I thought that was interesting. But yeah, no, I've heard what you said as well too.
I've been seeing it roll around Twitter lately about like the what ifs of college football. I would say that Chip Kelly in Oregon, if he stays at Oregon, is one of my bigger what ifs. I mean, he kind of had that ball rolling before its time.
He definitely ahead of his time there, because I mean, what was it? Oh my God, it's just the same with Michael James. Dennis Dixon was a quarterback, I thought, if I'm not mistaken. Like you
Marcus
also
Mariota, and USC was down. That was the great part about it. USC was down. It's kind of like Miami, right? Florida State comes along with Jimbo because Miami's down, and we just can't recover. And hopefully Lincoln Riley gets them back rolling. But you're 100% right. Though.
We talk about it on this podcast all the time, even within the SEC, obviously ACC, any conference. It's true. For someone to be up, somebody's got to be down. We can't all be up.
There's levels as Kobe just said. There's levels to this shit. Listen, JOGG, go Utes. Listen, also we talk about this on the podcast. Utah is straight trash, and Juan Daniels would tell you the same thing. And don't get it twisted. He just will.
Listen, but anyway, if you lose a game to the Florida Gators, we'll never forgive you until you beat them. That's the rules. Y'all, Miami's under the same pressure in 2024.
We bad, man. We got some work to do, brother. We got some work. Listen, it's tough, man. Anyway.
Well, I mean,
let's go down.
We could go down a rabbit hole for that, though. I mean, we could definitely go down the rabbit hole for that. I do kind of want to do this. Coach, you've evaled several players that end up going to Georgia, things like that. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do now is I want to get your opinion on this. We'll give us some impact players. We're gonna shy away from the Brock Bowers. Right? I think we all know that Brock Bowers is an impact player. I'd say some instant impact freshmen. Right? Keep it recency. And basically what I just want to do is, and we'll take one or some few or whatever. It don't matter. Instant impact players that we think could have a huge impact on this season. Kobe, I'll let you go first. I'll let you go first. Give us an impact player that you think, aside from the major names that you kind of obvious.
Jonell Aguero, safety.
Jonell Aguero.
I think he'll see some playing time. I think he'll flash.
We lost him to Georgia. We had him at Miami. I thought.
I think that, hopefully, this is going to sound kind of bad. Wish it on nobody, but I think he's one of your better safeties on the team. He's going to be splitting some reps with the first team. And if there's a stumble or a slip up, I could definitely see him. My only concern is that it would be true sophomore Malachi Starks and true freshman Jonell Aguero running around the back end. So it definitely makes me feel better when redshirt senior Dan Jackson's back there pointing a couple things out to everybody.
I think honestly, though, Kobe, to be honest, I think what we might see is Javon Bullard slide back to safety and allow Tyke to come down and play star. That way you get some significant veteran experience back there with Malachi Starks, let him roam free. Yeah. And then if you need to rotate, you put in Jonell Aguero, because Jonell can do the star as well. Jonell's just this versatile dude that, well, A, he can hit like a strong safety. B, he can cover like a free safety. He's that hybrid that you need, right? And I think it's a great point that you bring that up, because I do think, the way that, watching his highlight tape, if you haven't done that, you see – I mean, hell, look at G-Day. Go to G-Day. Watch the pick six that Raylan Wilson grabs and takes it to the house. Jonell Aguero's closing speed on Anthony Evans was insane, especially for a true freshman at that point in time. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I'm excited to hear coaches.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Coach
Malachi Stark. I got to give Malachi Starks his love. He's the highest viewed WRE, which that's what I call him, watch, react, and evaluate. So he is the highest. I think it's almost 50,000 views, something like that, on his video. So, when I watched his tape, he's from they red and blue. What's the name of the team in Georgia? Don't tell me. I'm looking at it. They just had a guy come out of there. what's the name of the high school he's from? Anyhow,
who are
nah,
we talking about again?
Starks, Malachi Starks.
Jefferson.
Jefferson, yes, because the Sammy Brown just came out of there.
Mhm.
Right, that's what I'm thinking of. Sammy Brown just came Clemson commit. But anyhow, Malachi Starks, man, I thought he was dynamic. And again, I brought him up earlier about the Mizzou, him running down. But to think about what he's done, just think about what he's doing. He broke into a national championship defense as a true freshman. Like that's scary.
Well, the thing about it too, Coach, is this: his first test was Oregon, and the first time he got tested, he made one of the nastiest interceptions of the year over Seven McGee.
Yeah, and what's scary, the state. See, some players play like this. Some players play like this. He plays like this. The stage is not too big. Because, I mean, rightfully so. You go and play, you're a big time. What you got, depending on what city you're in, you might have a couple thousand people. 10,000 is huge, whatever. We're talking 100,000, baby. You know what I mean? And the stage is not like how many of us would walk out and be like this? Like, be honest, Kobe. First time you walked out, you heard it. Did you do like this? Or you like, man, snap this doggone ball and get this thing through it. Like, you got to embrace it. Some you got to be like, oh my God, you know. And for a dude to go in there and just play like that, man. I remember coaching in a big game, and you don't realize how loud it is. You can't even hear in the headset. So imagine a kid playing at that level, and then you make a play, and it's even louder. So man, I got chill bumps. Man, give him a coaching on. But anyway. Man, you know, Malachi Starks is one, and I really want to see Marvin Jones. I really want to see what he's going to be about. For you guys, you know, I hate quarterbacks. You know, I think they suck.
Jeez, thanks, Coach.
I'm sorry, man. They always wore those stop sign jerseys. They all call the red jerseys stop signs because you can't hit them. So they always got the stop sign on. But yeah, man, those guys right there definitely. But I'm interested in Damon Wilson. I talked to you about this the other day. Did I steal your guy?
Just partially. I can do some more.
All right, I'll do one. Yeah, you guys know the roster way better than I.
He's the one I think that I didn't want to take from anybody, but I agree.
Yeah. Now Damon Wilson, like I was telling you on the phone the other day, was a guy. My brother-in-law lives in Venice, and he was telling me, man, this is dude over here at Venice High School, man. And Venice is known in the state as a good program, very good program, and so forth. And I'm looking at his tape, and I remember being on a podcast saying, bro, I don't know who this dude is, da-da-da. And maybe I might be wrong, it's coincidence, but I like, man, maybe these 247 people start watching the podcast, and I didn't know it. The next day, he moves up to a 5-star. The very next day. Like, when I'm looking at his tape, I'm breaking his tape, and I'm like, oh, my God. Like, he's killing. What's the guy that's going to he's at Alabama. He was the offensive guard. They were playing IMG. They played him a lot. He put him in a body bag, my man. And he was only in 10th grade at the time.
Poor Timmy situation there.
Oh, poor little Timmy, man. But it was all bad, man. But that dude could play. And you know, we were trying to get him to go there. And my second one is Troy Bowles. I love Troy Bowles. I love his film. He got an old school, but he also has the brain to play. He looks like a coach's dad. Like, if you evaluate enough tape, you could tell dudes that have coaches for fathers, man. And I told you last night on the phone, I tried to tell the Miami Hurricane fan base, go to a Tampa Bay game. Let's buy a whole section with our Hurricane gear on and just chant, we want Troy. We want Troy. Because everybody knows his father is the head coach at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But nobody would listen to me, so he ended up at Georgia.
And I think to that point, he was out of this 3 linebacker class, he was the only one that didn't early enroll. So, like, you know, Georgia fans really got a little taste of Raylan Wilson and CJ Allen early in the spring game. But, you know, don't forget about Troy, because he is going to be a good player here soon. You know, I mean, obviously this year, like, you have 2 junior linebackers, you know, but we rotate. I mean, we even rotate middle linebackers, depending on coverage and depending on, like, third down packages. So it's a guy, he could have early impact on the special teams, and then he could be in some pass rush coverages very early. I think that he's been a little overlooked since signing day, just because he hadn't been here.
Yeah, I think he goes to a private school, so they don't allow them to enroll early. I think Tampa Jesuit, if I'm not mistaken. And like I said, the beautiful thing, you guys going to have some nice wins, so you have enough margin for error to get some of your younger guys in. And the beauty is now they have these 4 games they can play without burning a red shirt, so you can really get an opportunity. I think that was out of all the stuff the NCAA has done, that I think was the most genius thing that they've implemented in the past 10 years, is letting these guys get 4 games under their belt and not burning their red shirt.
Well, especially with the way bowl games have gone the past, I guess, 6, 7, 8 years since the playoffs. I mean, you got seniors and juniors sitting out left and right, and now I'm looking at this freshman going, I could either let him play this whole game and lose a whole year of eligibility, or I can just, jog a walk on out there and hope we don't lose by 30.
And that loss goes on our record.
And I may get fired for it.
So Low Elo Joe asks, will the 23 defense be better than the 21 or 22? I think this answer is subjective to how you're viewing it. I think statistically, right, with the schedule, right, the schedule matters with these statistics. I think statistically you have a really good shot. Talent-wise, I think you're absolutely loaded. I think you have the speed and the discipline and the seniority there to really wreak havoc in all 3 levels of the defense. And you start, like I said, you start with Zion Logue, Warren Brinson, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, all those guys up front. And I'll get to trust me, I'll get to my impact in just a second, but I do want to finish this. When you have that right there, and then you pair that with like juniors now, Smile Mondon and Pop Johnson, then we saw the success that Malachi Starks had last season. You've got Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith should be fully healthy. That looks like it could very well matter when it comes to the star position, right? It allows Javon Bullard to slide back. I'm just saying that I feel like and honestly, you look at the cornerback spot, right? Kamari Lassiter, his time is now, right? And then as CB2, there's actually so much depth that it could be an interesting battle to see who's going to be the starting corner aside from him. You've got Dalen Everett, you've got Julian Humphrey, Nyland Green, right? There's so many guys that could battle it out for this. And even if you need to, you can just rotate in if you really, really need to. I think depth-wise, yes. I think depth-wise, absolutely. Obviously, just making a prediction, I would assume so. But it's so hard to compare those defenses. I mean, when you look at the Jordan Davises and Nakobe Deans and stuff, they're just so influential and impactful that it makes this hard to really say.
Yeah, and I'll say this: better. Will the 2023 defense be better than 21 and 22? Better how? Like, that would be the question, I think, on top of that. Better statistically, that's going to be very difficult compared to the 21 team. Better depth-wise, maybe. But then I'm telling you probably aren't going to know till about 2025. Because when you look back at 2021, every starter plus the backup nose tackle all got drafted. Every single one of them.
Wow.
Is this team, is the 2023 better than that? We'll see when they all run out of eligibility, I guess. I mean,
Coach, I saw this stat that's going to make your just eyes pop out of your head here. Georgia in the past 3 drafts has had a first-rounder in every position on the defense, drafted in the first round. You've had Eric Stokes to cover the cornerbacks, Lewis Singh, right, at safety. You've had each linebackers, Quay Walker, right? You had Nolan Smith on the end. You've had Jordan Davis, right? Every spot, basically, at every level has had a first-rounder in the past 3 drafts.
Sorry, guys. Miami used to be like that, guys. We're not like that anymore. We used to be like that. Oh. Hey, I do so many of these podcasts with people, and I swear to God, my insides be cringing. I'm like, that used to be us. I swear it's terrible, bro. I'm like, but you're right, man. I mean, it is what it is. But no, you're 100% right, man. But I'm sitting here saying, like that used to be Miami, man.
Yeah,
and it's
old enough to remember the Ed Reeds and stuff coming out. It was insane.
Oh my God, bro! Like And you think about so make a comparison to that to what Georgia has. So talk about erasers. And because Ed Reed, let's call it what it is, his foot speed wasn't the best, but his brain made his feet faster, right? Just like Troy Polamalu's and so forth and so on. But you now imagine if Ed Reed, you put him in the body of the Sean Taylor, right? Who foot speed, right? Think about, so now Sean Taylor has the cognitive as well as the athleticism, what we talked about, right? You want to get both, and that's what Georgia, I think, is doing a great job of. They're getting both. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis were guys that cognitively outweighed their athleticism, right? Cool. But if you can get, here and feet at the same time, you got a monster on your hand, and you just said it. I mean, you pretty much got them all over the football field, and you showed that in the draft, so.
So hopefully that answered Low Joe's question there, but I'm going to go and I'm going to give you a couple here. Instant impact guys that I think, and I'll kind of explain briefly on why I think they'll be this way. First off, I got to do this because of bias. Jamal Jarrett, you bring in that true nose tackle, 340, 350-pound guy. And I think you look at him playing the Jordan Davis role, right? Now I'm not going to compare it, production-wise just yet. But when you do these things, right, having that true nose to eat up double teams matters, right? When we go back and Georgia fans look back on Jordan Davis, the statistics never showed the impact and the importance of Jordan Davis on the field, right? Now, Jordan Davis was also a two-down kind of guy. When third down came, you push somebody else out and put him in, right? Which fair, get it. But having the ability, Georgia's predicated on stopping the run. That's our thing. We've been known to be a run-stopping defense. You need those bodies up front like that, right? You've got Zion Lowe. I think will probably be the starter nose tackle potentially, but then with how Georgia's defense, they rotate, especially D-line. Trey Scott rotates these guys more than any team I've seen in quite some time. You're going to get this situation where you need him to do well and stop up the run, right? Stop, hit a gap, take on two guys, and allow a Pop Johnson to come in and free what we saw with Nakobe and Jordan Davis. That matters. I'm going to stay on the defensive line as well. Jordan Hall. Jordan Hall could be what basically I feel he will take over what Bear Alexander left when he left for USC. That kid is a freak, and he's massive.
Minus the being a pain in the ass part, or what?
Probably correct.
Okay.
So I brought this. I wrote that down about Bear Alexander, and so Bear Alexander, he leaves, I guess, because he was a pain in the ass. Is that what it was? It was a lot of issues, kind of things, and
skipping. Coach, tell me how this fly down in college football. Skipping practices, not showing up to the first week of spring practices because you're getting your teeth fixed in another country. Just getting in fights in the locker room, couple things like that punching other starters, just for no apparent reason, no good enough reason. Just kind of a toxic teammate overall.
And those are the ones you got. Hey, you got what they call it, addition by subtraction. So that's one of those situations, man. And I want to ask one more thing. Amarius Mims, right? There was a lot of talk about him, the Florida State thing, and all of that stuff. He's back with you guys? Good. Is he in good standings, or is he like put him in the corner till he proves himself again?
Nah, he started a couple games for us last year.
Yep.
Actually,
when McClendon last year, yeah. I think he stays at right tackle though. I think he does
new thing, Coach, and this is an embarrassment of riches, and I love it. 2 years ago, this year, last year, I don't remember. But we started rotating offensive line like every couple of drives. We'd be like, throw the freshman in at a guard and a tackle, let them run a couple plays. And you definitely help him because like this past year, Broderick Jones, who didn't get a lot of reps, didn't get a lot of really good tackle, didn't get a lot of playing time, really already had some snaps under his belt before he had to be the starting left tackle. And now we've kind of done the same thing last year with Amarius Mims. He's got to start a couple games, he's got to play in a couple big games, and now he's going to be your starting every down right tackle. I think that's important to emphasize as well. I'm pretty sure that we're confident that he's not going to be playing the left side, but he's in good standings. He had a good time down there at Florida State, good enough time to send him back our way. So
No, that's good, man. And again, right, that goes back to stacking rosters, where when you're beating teams by 35, 40, you can throw in some guys to get some game experience. You can throw in some guys where now he may be a sophomore. You're not worried about burning the red shirt, but he can get some significant time in there. So when a Jordan Davis or a Jalen Carter leaves, it's not a shock to the system. But if you're constantly in game day in, day out, like we were, then unfortunately you got to keep your best in just to try to win the game. But if you can get into some games where you can, thrash somebody and all right, let's get the young dude in there so he can get some feel, so he can get some touches, he can get the shakes off, and now he's been in this situation. Maybe he'll start if somebody's down this game, or maybe a guy tweaks something. We could start him, but you know what? Let this guy go in and get a feel for it. Let him go in and get a full game in under his belt, and it won't really hurt us. So, no, that's great.
Yeah, you talk about stacking the roster. Georgia's in a situation where if Tate Ratledge goes down, or right, if we need to switch out a guard, you've got guys like Dylan Fairchild and Michael Morris and Austin Blasky. Those are just three of them that they're going to play in the NFL, Coach. They're going to play in the NFL, and they're backups right now. And Michael Morris Fairchild's probably one of the strongest guys on the program. Michael Morris has got some of the heaviest hands I think I've seen in quite some time. And Austin Blasky can play every position on the offensive line. And I feel like at a good level too.
And don't count him out on the left tackle job either.
Yeah, because you can see him. I think it's a battle between him and Ernest Green at this point, right? I think. And you might see some rotating, especially with the schedule being beneficial to Georgia at this point. Which kind of leads me to my third and final impact freshman, though. I'm going to go offensive side of the ball because we've neglected the offense. I know you're not an offensive guy, Coach, but I think Yazid Haynes. A lot of people, I feel like, kind of overlooked him. But Yazid has the speed and blend of route running. I feel like when it comes to, what you look for in a receiver, I feel like Yazid Haynes can come in and if he can get through the rotation, I think you'll see him have a possibility to make some moves on the offense as a receiver. I see some comments here. I see Fanatics Sports Network. Go Dogs. What's going on, fellas? Not much. Just chopping it up,
I'll tell you this, and I like Yazid Haynes, but I pray he does not have an impact this season. Because we're so deep in the wide receiver room right now that if he's having an impact this season, either we got some injury bug problems, or we got some sorry dudes floating around. Because
let me change my pick then. Just for Sir Swolders. What about Roderick Robinson? I think you can see Roderick have some run as well. Don't sleep on Andrew Paul though, right? I'm putting him as a freshman because technically redshirted with his ACL injury last season. Keep in mind, Andrew Paul was getting more love than Branson Robinson in the spring before he went down. Coming out of Texas, my man had some tape, and a lot of people didn't notice it. But Andrew Paul could definitely make some waves, especially with the running back room, and make sure we stay healthy. If our guys stay healthy, right, you still see some run, but I still think Andrew Paul could come back and make some moves too. Fanatic says, or Yazid can just be that good. Hey, you never know. But you do bank on Dominic Lovett being that guy for you. I'm just going to leave that there. Let's see. Like DeAndre Swift had an impact this freshman year, even though we had Sony and Nick. Yeah, could.
Whole different
fair.
Position,
yeah, fair.
I
get the logic where it's coming from. I get it.
I do. I get it. And I'm not saying you're not wrong or not right or whatever, but it just, you got a stable of wide receivers right now.
Yeah.
Upperclassmen.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this real fast. Before we wrap things up, man, make sure to check out Alumni Hall. That's our second sponsor here. DGDpodcast.com/Alumni Hall. Get your license, Nike gear, Cutter and Buck, Yeti, you name it. All licensed product, apparel, accessories, located in Athens, 10 minutes away from Sanford Stadium. Make sure to check them out. You can also follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Alumni Hall UGA. Check them out, folks. This shirt right here, just got it. Alumni Hall, hook me up, Coach. We've been talking for a while now. At the same
I
time,
can go, baby. So I'm good. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
welcome to that. Welcome to that, Coach. Welcome to that coaching life, huh?
Try to tell you, baby, we do 3-hour podcasts. So listen, I'm still on my first hour, so I'm ready to rock. It's up to you guys.
Oh man, now, I do want to. So obviously, if we'll wrap it up with one final question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'll make the prediction? Do you think Georgia wins a third straight national championship?
Is it highly possible? Yes. I've been in this game long enough to know there are several things. Let me knock on wood. My desk is wood, so you don't want to wish any bad things on anything. But there are several things, and Kobe brought up one, injury bug. One, even though you got great guys behind it, the experience and all of that is so important. Two, roster management. I'm not saying he doesn't, I'm not saying Coach Smart doesn't know how to do this. These are the things I'm just saying that really play a part in now this three-peat. Roster management. I hate to say this, but the less time guys are on the field, the less time for injury, if that makes sense, right? The less opportunities, right? The laws of probability is there. So if you can find ways to get in and get out of games injury-free, that helps with the injury bug, okay? And then third, the luck, baby. There's sometimes a tip ball is here and there. There's sometimes, as you talked earlier about special teams and field goal blocks that help you win some ball games to keep the drive alive. A drop here and there or a great catch here and there. It can definitely be done. But to win the national championship, especially SEC football, as we all know, that's the pinnacle right now when it comes to conferences, is not an easy task, right? I mean, you're literally fighting day in and day out. You happy to play a Charlotte or a Mercer somewhere down the line. And I don't know, who do you guys have in the last 2 or 3 games of the season? Do you know?
Our last
Tennessee.
Yeah, our last. Oh. So the last 2 games. Oh no, I'll do 3. The last 3 we host Ole Miss, then go to Knoxville, then go to Georgia Tech.
And see, I'm gonna say this: Georgia Tech may be I'm not gonna say an easy win, but an easier opponent than the last 2. I'm gonna tell you something that Alabama has done a beautiful job at. I don't care what anybody says. They always find right before that Iron Bowl a doormat game to rest guys up, especially since the playoffs have started. You got to have a game in there because it's so brutal. Most people front load their schedule with 2 or 3 group of 5 opponents or something to kind of warm up the season, right? But you have to remember, you know this, Kobe, man, you're battle beaten, you're bruised, you're tired, your body is sore. Even though you get a week off, you're still practicing and you're beating. And one thing Alabama has done a good job is if you go look at their schedule in the past, they always put in about the second to the last, maybe that third last game right before the Iron Bowl.
It's always the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. They put a ULM in there. They put somebody in there where they know it's going to be a W. We can get in first quarter guys, let the rest of the guys rest the 3 quarters, know they're going to play the Iron Bowl, and then now you're on this stretch for the playoffs.
Don't tell that to A&M. They'll lose to App State again.
So you got a good stretch there at the end. You know what I mean? Lane Kiffin is bringing in some guys, and whatever the case may be. Tennessee is hot on fire right now. The GBO is big on fire, and then your last game is who? Georgia Tech. I don't know what Georgia Tech is going to be. The quarterback left. I believe he went somewhere else, but maybe
Sims went to Nebraska.
Yeah. So who knows, man? But we'll definitely see. But I do think, is it highly possible? Most definitely, man. Most definitely. But I think there are a lot of things that have to take place. The injury bug, you got to eliminate that, and some luck. Talent is never an
And
issue.
and coach,
Scheme, I don't think is an issue.
talking about getting in and out of games.
All right. I
With
don't know what that was. Did y'all hear that?
yeah, I did.
I don't know what it was. One, is that you?
I don't know who it was.
I have no clue.
I thought I wanted an extra man.
No clue.
But
what were you saying, Kobe?
Talking about getting in and out of games with the new first down rule being changed this year, I think you're going to see a lot of those early games be fairly short if you're not careful. I mean, if you're not stopping clock, respotting ball, you could have a couple of those games that you're trying to get out of. If you can run the ball and control the line of scrimmage, I think you're going to see some 8, 9, 10-minute drives in some of these games where teams are just running the ball old school, 3.5, 4.5 yards a carry, first down, second down, third down, first down. And that clock's just going to be tick, 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 tick going. But that's
especially
important.
with that new rule. Yeah,
you get out healthy. I mean, like you're saying, you don't want to waste time playing 80 plays versus Ball State when you may only have to play 50 to win the game, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, with those new rule changes, I think that will impact some things. I feel like Alabama might be one of those. I feel like they kind of revert back to ground and pound, right? Especially with while they get. I mean, listen, if you got Justice Haynes in there, man, and Jace McClellan, run the damn ball.
I just think what Navy's going to do to some of these people with that.
Navy's going to surprise somebody. What? Yeah, triple option, baby. No, hey, people sleep on that triple option.
Go out there, win the coin flip, take the ball, eat up the whole first quarter. Here's the ball back.
Be like, damn, Kentucky and Tennessee, right? Kentucky have the ball for 3 quarters and still lose.
And then
I mean, we've seen that here. Matter of fact, Jalen Carter, I coached against him when he was up here at a pop.
Oh wow, oh boy.
He was a big old dude, man, and they used to do a lot of that. Well, he wasn't part of that program, but I forget the coach's name, man. Big time dude, Rick. I can't. But anyway, he ended up going to Enterprise, Alabama. But anyhow, he's over at Mainland now, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, man, that stuff is tough. The problem is, can you get back if you ever get down? And that's always been the issue. But those rule changes come into play, man. And again, coaches will know how to manipulate that when they need to. But they also do it because a lot of people throw the ball around the yard now. And so that always stops the clock. I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of years if you don't see even incomplete passes in the first 5 minutes of the quarter, like the clock still run. You know what I mean? Because so many incompletes and that kind of stuff. But
I just feel like that would really just detriment to the game, in my opinion. I mean,
I agree.
I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole with NCAA and their rule changes and stuff. Like, I don't care for the NCAA myself, but neither here nor there, But no, I think Georgia has a damn good shot to do it, right? Coach brought it out perfectly, right? You look at the roster management, you're loaded with talent, so you can rotate in and not really miss a beat. And then the schedule and some luck, right? You got to have some luck, right? I think we've seen that. Hell, ask a damn Bama or Ohio State fan, and they'll tell you what luck means, right? Just gonna leave that there. No shot at anybody, but you get what I mean. Somebody called a stray. With that being said, though, Coach, if people want to find your work, man, I know, like you said, you do a lot of evals, not just specifically for Georgia, but across the country and the landscape. Where can people find your work, man, if they want to watch some evals for some recruits?
Yeah, man. So if you want to go just to Coach Hayes Football, which is on YouTube, you see that logo right about there. You definitely can go ahead and put it up. So far as Twitter is just Coach Hayes FB. My people have been telling me I got to do more on social media. So Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff is all Coach Hayes Football. But if you ever see that logo and that ugly mask right there, that's me. So, like I said, you can see it there, man. But like I said, we break down the top talent in the nation. We try to go with guys who maybe just commit to some of the bigger programs. And what I do in those breakdowns, you make it entertaining, but I also try to give you a coach's perspective in the sense of why the young man got open or why he made a great play using his hands, so forth. And now this year, I just implemented a grading scale. So as many people hate the star system, So I started chips. I started a blue chip, gold chip, silver, and bronze. And what a blue chip just simply means elite, right? He's elite. So yes, that means overall you get a ranking, but you can have elite size, but you need some development, which is skill, right? Like, so that's just what it is. So it's 5 categories we break down, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of entertainment. It's all that good stuff. But you definitely can check it out and go check us out there. But fellas, man, I appreciate it. Had a good time at the DGD podcast. What does that mean again?
Damn good dog.
Absolutely.
A damn good a burr. I'm loving it, baby. I love it, man. I love it.
As Rudes would say, I barked.
I bark.
Listen, you do that, you bark again, coach, and we're gonna get this. All right, keep it up. Keep it up. We gonna make someone in the chat bark. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Oh, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means, but I'm here for it, man. Don't tease me
Hey,
with a good
listen,
time.
you get Rudes to bark and it's a wrap. That's all I'm gonna say. Coach, hey man, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for your insight within the game, recruiting
Thank you.
evals, things like that. Listen, make sure I'll pull it back up for those that didn't see it the first time. Make sure to go to Coach Hayes' YouTube, right there in the lower third. If you're seeing this, subscribe and ring the bell. By the way, ring the bell for him. Make sure you get those evals right. Like I said, he does a lot of evals on
Monday through Friday, man.
Monday through Friday. All right, got the Canes podcast for anybody that's interested in listening to some Miami talk. Uh, like I said, go subscribe there. Also, make sure to like and subscribe here. Try not to be too pushy, but hey, it's free. It's simple, right? Just make sure you're letting us know you're here. Like it, subscribe if you like what you're hearing. With that being said, though, that is all we've got for today. Kobe, Sir Swolders, it was a pleasure seeing you again. We got to get Juan back on the show to get Rob and the gang back in, though.
Yeah, real quick. I actually got a podcast today at 8:00 with Coach JB Jason Brown from the Netflix special Last Chance U. So we got a big deal coming up tonight here at 8:00 on the Coach and Coach podcast, man.
So with that being said, there's your plug to make sure you go subscribe so you can tune into Coach JB too. Just saying. With that being said, though, Kobe, Coach, it's good talking. We're going to wrap this thing up. We're going to get ready to head into another weekend. Hey, by the way, just letting y'all know it's another big weekend for OVs at Georgia. Just going to leave that there. With that being said, that's all we got for today, though. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a review if you listen on podcasts. Have a great day and go Dogs.
Go Dogs. See you, Coach.